On the morning of June 6, 1944, at precisely 0630 hours, Sergeant John Robert Slaughter of the 29th Infantry Division's 116th Regiment advanced through chest-deep water toward Omaha Beach in Normandy. Machine gun fire tore through the waves surrounding him, while artillery shells created massive explosions in the surf. Dozens of men were falling in the water and on the sand, creating a scene of devastating carnage. Slaughter was 34 years old and carried 230 pounds on his 5-foot 9-inch frame, making him significantly overweight by military standards of the time. When he had attempted to enlist in 1942, the recruiting sergeant had examined his physical results with evident concern. The sergeant informed him that he exceeded the weight limit for his height by 40 pounds, making him ineligible for service under standard regulations. Slaughter argued his case with determination. His background included service in the Virginia National Guard before the war, providing him with valuable military experience. He possessed considerable physical strength and had demonstrated his ability to march while carrying full equipment. His weight consisted primarily of muscle mass developed through years of demanding farm work rather than excess fat. The recruiting sergeant maintained his skepticism, but eventually processed the enlistment with a special waiver documenting his excessive weight and recommending assignment to non-combat duties. Early military service and persistent prejudice. When Slaughter reported to the 29th Division, he immediately encountered mockery and doubt. Other soldiers, predominantly young men in their early 20s, weighing between 150 and 170 pounds, directed derogatory comments toward him regarding his weight. Officers questioned whether he could maintain pace during forced marches. His company commander suggested he would be better suited for supply duties or administrative work, positions where physical fitness requirements were less demanding. During the training period in England while preparing for the D-Day invasion, Slaughter's weight became a constant source of concern for his superiors. He failed his first physical fitness test and struggled with obstacle courses that had been designed with lighter men in mind. He consistently finished last in timed running exercises. Medical officers recommended his reassignment to rear echelon duties, and his battalion commander concurred with this assessment. The prevailing opinion held that Slaughter was too heavy for frontline combat operations, would slow down his unit's movements, and would likely become a casualty quickly. The consensus suggested utilizing him in positions where his weight would not constitute a liability. However, Slaughter refused the offered reassignment. He had enlisted with the intention of participating in combat, not performing administrative duties. He committed himself to working harder than anyone else in his company, training for longer periods and carrying heavier loads to demonstrate his capability to handle combat equipment. His fitness test scores improved gradually through dedicated effort. He proved he could maintain pace during marches despite his weight. Eventually, though with considerable reluctance, his commanders permitted him to remain with a frontline infantry company, though they maintained their skepticism about his combat effectiveness. A background built on physical labor. Understanding how Slaughter became one of D-Day's most effective soldiers requires examination of his background and recognition that his weight, viewed as a liability by military authorities, bore no relation to his actual combat capabilities. John Robert Slaughter was born on March 15, 1910, in Roanoke, Virginia. He grew up on a family farm where physical labor was constant and essential to daily life. From age 10, Slaughter performed farm chores that built extraordinary physical strength. These tasks included hauling hay bales, lifting heavy feed sacks, plowing fields, moving equipment, and repairing fences. The work was demanding and continuous, building muscle mass that would not simply disappear because military charts indicated he weighed too much. By his late teenage years, Slaughter could lift weights that exhausted thinner men.
He could work all day in the fields without experiencing fatigue. His endurance, developed through years of farm labor, exceeded what most men could achieve through standard training. The weight issue first emerged when Slaughter enlisted in the Virginia National Guard in 1936 at age 26. His weight at that time was already 210 pounds. Military height-weight standards specified that he should weigh no more than 175 pounds for his 5'9" height. Medical officers noted his excessive weight, but allowed him to serve in the National Guard because the Guard needed personnel and Slaughter was otherwise healthy. Slaughter served 5 years in the Guard, primarily participating in weekend drills and summer training exercises. He performed well throughout this period. His fitness scores remained acceptable despite his weight. His marksmanship skills were excellent. He earned promotion to corporal based on his performance. When he departed the Guard in 1941, his service record noted that despite being overweight according to regulations, he had proven to be a capable soldier. Enlistment for World War II. When America entered World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Slaughter decided to re-enlist. He was 31 years old and weighed 230 pounds. He understood he was overweight by military standards, but believed his strength and experience made him valuable to the war effort. The recruiting sergeant's initial rejection caused him considerable frustration. Slaughter knew he was physically capable despite his weight, having proven this fact during his National Guard service and through years of farm work. But military regulations remained inflexible. The waiver that ultimately allowed his enlistment came with the recommendation for non-combat assignment. This reflected the military's prevailing belief that overweight soldiers could not handle the physical demands of combat. The assumption was that heavy soldiers would tire quickly, struggle with equipment loads, and become liabilities during sustained operations. Slaughter knew this assumption was incorrect based on his experience, but he could not convince authorities without proving himself in actual combat conditions. Training in the United States during 1942 and 1943 demonstrated the persistence of weight-based prejudice. Physical training instructors made Slaughter run extra miles in attempts to reduce his weight. They placed him on restricted diets. They exempted him from certain training exercises under the assumption he could not complete them. The constant message conveyed was that his weight made him deficient, regardless of his actual performance levels. Nevertheless, Slaughter performed adequately in most training scenarios. He could march while carrying full equipment. He could complete obstacle courses, though at a slower pace than lighter soldiers. He qualified as expert with the M1 Garand rifle. His tactical knowledge, based on his National Guard experience, was solid. The only area where he consistently struggled involved timed runs and exercises requiring speed. However, Slaughter understood that combat was rarely about running fast. It was about endurance, strength, and determination, qualities he possessed.
When the 29th Division deployed to England in October 1943 to prepare for the invasion of France, Slaughter's weight remained a persistent issue. British rations, combined with limited opportunities for physical training during the winter months, caused him to gain additional weight. By March 1944, he weighed 240 pounds. Medical officers again recommended his reassignment to non-combat duties. His commander again agreed that Slaughter was too heavy for combat operations. Slaughter fought this recommendation vigorously. He argued that his experience made him valuable to the combat mission. He demonstrated his ability to handle equipment loads effectively. He improved his fitness scores through extra training sessions. He volunteered for every difficult assignment to prove his capability. Eventually, more from exhaustion with his persistence than from actual confidence in his abilities, his commanders allowed him to remain with Company D, 116th Infantry Regiment. He would participate in the D-Day invasion, despite being, in his commander's assessment, the heaviest soldier in the battalion. The D-Day landing, June 6th, 6:30 a.m.
The invasion plan called for Company D to land in the first wave at 6:30 hours on a sector of Omaha Beach designated Dog Green. Intelligence reports had suggested German defenses in this sector were moderate. The reality proved catastrophic. German forces had heavily fortified Dog Green with machine gun nests, artillery positions, and numerous obstacles. They possessed clear fields of fire covering the entire beach area. They were prepared and waiting for the invasion force. As landing craft approached the beach, German artillery began falling among them. Several craft were hit and sank before reaching shore. Survivors struggled in the water, weighed down by their equipment. Slaughter's craft managed to reach the beach obstacles. The front ramp dropped, and German machine gun fire immediately swept across the ramp opening. The first man attempting to exit were cut down instantly. Slaughter was positioned midway back in the landing craft. He watched men ahead of him die as they tried to exit. The water ahead was filled with bodies and struggling soldiers. The beach beyond was swept by constant machine gun fire. Every instinct suggested staying within the landing craft's relative protection, but remaining meant certain death when German artillery inevitably struck the stationary target. Slaughter jumped off the side of the landing craft into shoulder-deep water. His equipment, exceeding 70 pounds and including rifle, ammunition, grenades, and supplies, pulled him under the surface. His weight, the supposed liability, actually proved helpful. His strength allowed him to push off the bottom and surface. Lighter men, equally weighted with equipment, struggled more significantly to stay afloat. Slaughter advanced toward shore through the water. German machine gun fire churned the water around him. Bullets struck his pack. One grazed his helmet. Artillery shells exploded in the surf, creating massive geysers of water. Men were dying all around him. Some were hit and sank beneath the surface. Some struggled with their equipment in the water. Some reached the beach only to be killed on the sand. The chaos was complete. The carefully planned invasion was disintegrating into a massacre. First actions on the beach. Slaughter reached the beach and crawled behind beach obstacles that provided minimal cover from machine gun fire, but offered no protection from artillery. He assessed the situation with experienced eyes. Company D had been devastated. Of the 197 men who had landed in the first wave, over 100 were already dead or wounded. The survivors were pinned down, unable to advance or retreat. German fire from elevated positions dominated the beach completely. Without forward movement to eliminate German positions, everyone remaining on the beach would eventually die. Slaughter identified the nearest German machine gun position, a concrete bunker located approximately 200 yards up the beach and 50 yards inland. The bunker's machine gun was firing parallel to the beach, sweeping down any movement. The position had to be eliminated, but reaching it required 200 yards of open beach under constant fire. Every soldier who had attempted this movement had died. Slaughter decided to make the attempt regardless. He had been told he was too heavy for combat. He had been told his weight made him a liability. Now he was determined to prove that weight was irrelevant to combat effectiveness. He began crawling forward, using every shell crater, every obstacle, every slight depression in the sand for cover. He moved when German attention was directed elsewhere, and froze when machine guns swung toward his position. The slow advance required 30 minutes to cover 200 yards. He reached a position behind a disabled tank, approximately 30 yards from the bunker. From this location, he could see the bunker's firing slit clearly. The machine gun barrel was visible, sweeping back and forth across the beach. Slaughter prepared a grenade carefully. He estimated the distance, calculated the throw angle, waited for the machine gun to point away from him, then threw with precision. The grenade arced through the air and landed perfectly inside the bunker's firing slit. The explosion inside the concrete structure was devastating. The machine gun fell silent. German soldiers inside were dead or wounded. Slaughter immediately moved toward the next nearest German position. Systematic elimination, 0730 hours through noon. With the first German position eliminated, Slaughter continued working his way up the beach, systematically destroying German strongpoints. His method was straightforward but highly effective. Identify the German position, advance using any available cover, get close enough for accurate grenade throws or rifle fire, eliminate the position, then move to the next position. At 0800 hours, Slaughter threw grenades into a German trench position, killing 4 German soldiers manning a machine gun. At 0830 hours, he used his M1 Garand rifle to kill 3 German soldiers attempting to reposition an artillery piece. At 0900 hours, he eliminated another bunker position with 2 grenades, killing 5 Germans.
By 0930 a.m., other American soldiers were following Slaughter's example, seeing that movement toward German positions was indeed possible. Others began advancing. Small groups of soldiers coordinated attacks on German strongpoints. Slaughter was consistently at the front of these impromptu assaults. His weight, far from being a liability, gave him momentum when pushing through obstacles. His strength allowed him to carry extra grenades and ammunition that lighter soldiers could not manage as effectively. Between 0930 and noon, Slaughter participated in the elimination of 6 more German positions. His personal tally of confirmed kills grew steadily. 2 Germans were killed with rifle fire at 100 yards. 3 more were killed with grenades in a fighting position. 4 Germans were killed when he threw grenades into a bunker. 5 Germans were killed when he led a squad assault on a trench system. The other soldiers stopped using derogatory terms and began addressing him as Sergeant Slaughter with genuine respect in their voices. His company commander, who had previously called him too heavy for combat, watched Slaughter eliminate German position after German position with methodical efficiency. After observing Slaughter kill 8 Germans in a single bunker assault, the commander radioed battalion headquarters that Sergeant Slaughter was the most effective soldier on the beach. By noon, American forces had pushed German defenders back from the beach. The immediate crisis was over. Landing reinforcements and supplies could now proceed with reduced risk. The invasion, nearly catastrophic at dawn, was succeeding partly because soldiers like Slaughter had refused to stay pinned down and had fought their way forward despite terrible casualties. Slaughter's confirmed kills by noon totaled 38. He had used approximately 120 rounds from his M1 Garand rifle, achieving roughly a 30% hit rate under combat conditions. He had thrown approximately 20 grenades, with 18 hitting their targets. His movement across 200 yards of beach, then up the bluffs to German positions, all while carrying full equipment, plus additional ammunition and grenades, demonstrated conclusively that his weight had been irrelevant to his combat effectiveness. Inland fighting, noon through 1800 hours. During the afternoon, American forces began advancing inland from the beach. German defenders had fallen back to secondary positions in villages and hedgerows. The fighting shifted from beach assaults to small unit combat in the Normandy countryside. This terrain favored defenders with its high hedgerows, sunken roads, and stone buildings that could be fortified effectively. Slaughter's company was assigned to capture the village of Vierville-sur-Mer, located approximately 1 kilometer inland from the beach. German forces had established defensive positions in stone buildings throughout the village. Machine guns covered the approach roads. Snipers were positioned in upper floors and church towers. The village had to be taken to secure the beach exits. The approach to Vierville required crossing open fields under German observation. Previous attacks had been repulsed with heavy casualties. American forces needed a new tactical approach. Slaughter volunteered to lead a flanking movement through a sunken road that German defenders apparently were not watching carefully. Slaughter led a squad of 12 men through the sunken road. The steep banks provided cover from German positions. They advanced approximately 500 meters without being detected. This brought them to the village's eastern edge, where German defenders were not expecting an attack.
Slaughter positioned his squad to assault several buildings simultaneously. At 1400 hours, Slaughter's squad attacked. He threw grenades through windows of the first building, then entered while German defenders were still stunned. 3 Germans in the building died, killed by rifle fire at close range. The second building, a stone barn fortified with sandbags, required different tactics. Slaughter climbed to the roof, dropped grenades through a ventilation hall, then covered the door as surviving Germans tried to escape. 4 Germans died in this assault. The attack on the village's eastern edge created confusion among German defenders. They had expected attacks from the beach side, not from the flank. German officers tried to reposition forces to counter Slaughter's squad. This movement exposed them to fire from American forces approaching from the beach. The coordination, though improvised rather than planned, proved highly effective. Between 1400 and 1600 hours, Slaughter's squad fought through 5 buildings in Vierville. Each assault followed a similar pattern. Grenades to stun defenders, immediate entry while Germans were disorganized, close quarters shooting, then rapid movement to the next position. Slaughter personally killed 14 Germans during this 2-hour period. His squad accounted for over 30 German casualties total. At 1630 hours, German forces began withdrawing from Vierville. Their defensive positions had been compromised by Slaughter's flanking attack. American forces from the beach were advancing steadily. Remaining in position meant being surrounded. German commanders ordered withdrawal to positions further inland. The withdrawal was relatively organized, but came under American fire during movement. Slaughter positioned his squad to fire on withdrawing Germans. From approximately 200 yards range, he and his squad engaged Germans moving through open ground toward their fallback positions. Over 30 minutes, Slaughter killed 9 Germans with rifle fire. His marksmanship, honed during training despite constant criticism about his weight, was exceptional. Every shot was aimed carefully, with most shots hitting their intended targets. By 1800 hours, Vierville was secured. American forces controlled the village and the roads leading inland. German forces had withdrawn to positions approximately 2 kilometers further from the beach. The immediate objectives for D-Day were achieved, but fighting would continue through the night as Germans counterattacked, attempting to push Americans back to the beach.
Slaughter's confirmed kills by 1800 hours totaled 61. He had participated in the elimination of over a dozen German positions. He had led successful assaults when other attacks had failed. He demonstrated tactical leadership that impressed his company commander. He had accomplished all of this while carrying equipment loads that many lighter soldiers struggled to manage. His weight, the supposed liability, had been completely irrelevant to his effectiveness. The counterattacks, 1800 through midnight. German forces launched counterattacks beginning at approximately 1830 hours. German commanders understood that if they could not push Americans off the beaches on D-Day, the invasion would succeed. They committed available reserves to night attacks, attempting to recapture coastal positions. The attacks focused on villages like Vierville that controlled beach exits. American forces in Vierville prepared defensive positions. Slaughter's squad was assigned to hold buildings on the village's southern edge. Intelligence suggested German attacks would come from this direction. The Americans had limited time to prepare. They positioned machine guns, established fields of fire, and prepared ammunition and grenades. Then they waited for the German assault. The first German attack came at 1900 hours. Approximately 100 German soldiers from the 352nd Infantry Division attacked Vierville from the south. The attack was supported by artillery fire that forced American defenders to take cover. Then German infantry advanced under covering fire from machine guns positioned in hedgerows outside the village. Slaughter's position came under immediate attack.
German soldiers advanced to within 50 yards before American defenders opened fire. The close-range firefight was intense. German soldiers used grenades against American positions. Americans returned fire with rifles and machine guns. The fighting was confused, with both sides struggling to identify targets in the gathering darkness. Slaughter, positioned in a second-floor window with good fields of fire, engaged German soldiers with his M1 Garand. The semi-automatic rifle allowed rapid, accurate fire. He killed 3 Germans in the initial assault, then 4 more as they tried to regroup, then 2 more as they withdrew. The German attack broke under concentrated American fire. They had suffered approximately 25 casualties without breaking through American positions. The second German attack came at 2100 hours. This was a larger force of approximately 200 men attacking from a different direction. This attack achieved more success initially. German soldiers reached American positions and engaged in close-quarters fighting. Several buildings changed hands multiple times as German attacks pushed Americans out, then American counterattacks recaptured the positions. Slaughter's building was attacked by approximately 30 German soldiers. They threw grenades through windows, then rushed the building entrance. Slaughter and his squad fought room to room. Slaughter killed 4 Germans in close-quarters fighting on the ground floor. 3 more Germans died on the second floor. The Americans held their position, but only barely. German attacks were determined and well coordinated. The fighting continued through the evening. German forces launched 4 separate attacks between 1800 and midnight. Each attack was repulsed but caused American casualties. The defenders grew exhausted. Ammunition ran low. Medical supplies were consumed treating wounded soldiers. Nevertheless, the Americans held their positions. Slaughter fought through all 4 German attacks. He was present wherever fighting was heaviest. When machine gun positions were overrun, he counterattacked to recapture them. When German soldiers breached buildings, he led the defense. When ammunition ran short, he redistributed ammunition from casualties. His energy seemed inexhaustible despite the day's extensive exertions. His final confirmed kills of D-Day came during the 4th German attack at approximately 23:30 hours. A German squad of 8 soldiers attempted to infiltrate American positions using darkness for concealment. They approached Slaughter's building from an unguarded direction. He detected them through sound alone. Then he waited till they were within 30 yards, then threw 4 grenades in rapid succession. All 8 Germans were killed or wounded by the grenades and follow-up rifle fire. By midnight on June 6th, German attacks had ceased. German commanders recognized they could not dislodge American forces. The invasion had succeeded. Beaches were secure. Reinforcements were landing continuously. Allied forces would expand from their beachhead in the following days. D-Day was over. The Germans had lost. The final count and recognition. After midnight, during a brief lull in fighting, Slaughter's company commander conducted a count of confirmed kills. Officers interviewed soldiers about enemy casualties. They examined German bodies. They reviewed after-action reports from various engagements. The purpose was to document the battle and recognize effective soldiers. Slaughter's name appeared repeatedly in these reports. Multiple soldiers reported his actions on the beach. Squad members described his leadership in capturing Vierville. Defenders in the evening battles reported his effectiveness during German counterattacks. The commander decided to carefully document Slaughter's D-Day performance. The confirmed kill count was impressive. On the beach, 38 Germans were killed through combinations of grenade throws, rifle fire, and direct assaults. In Vierville, 14 Germans were killed during the village capture. 9 Germans were killed during the German withdrawal. 15 Germans were killed during evening counterattacks. The total was 76 confirmed German deaths directly attributable to Slaughter's actions.